I was diagnosed not long after we were married with polycystic ovarian syndrome, and when we went for various tests they told us that it was highly unlikely that I'd fall pregnant and that the chances of IVF working were really, really slim. So we decided that it didn't really matter to us whether a child was biologically ours, we just wanted to be parents. It's hard going. It's quite intrusive. They want to know everything about your past, your finances. There's a lot of detail to go into, and I particularly got really, really stressed out about the house being immaculate every time anybody came out to us. Looking back, you think they really don't care if the tops of your kitchen cupboards are clean. Nobody's going to go and look at them. At the outset, you tend to think, well, we won't really need support, we'll be fine. And for the most part, we were, but when it comes to the point that something's an issue or you need a bit of help or you want some training, it's good to know that you can pick up the phone and that there's a process there and there's people that can help you out. It's completely unrecognisable. So much busier, to the point that you think, what on earth did we used to do with our time? We used to think we were busy because we both had full-time jobs. I was part-time for 4 years and was still busier than I'd ever been in my life, but so much more fun. But having wanted to be parents for a long time and waited for it, we really enjoy it. There was a point just before we adopted where a lot of our friends had children and we didn't, and it felt like we were just in a completely different stage in our lives. So it's just really nice to be moving on with everybody else instead of feeling a bit left behind. The transition period when you first meet the children is the most exhausting thing that I've ever done in my life. Every time we've said, oh, this time it'll be different, we know what to expect, it's never any less exhausting. You're basically living in somebody else's house for the best part of 2 weeks, and then that day when they actually come home and you shut the door and it's just the three of you, to think, this is actually happening now. It's not just been going and babysitting for somebody for a few hours a day. We had our first son, and after about a year we were thinking we've got more to give, and I have huge age gaps in my family, so it was important to me that my children were close in age and got to grow up together. So we contacted our social worker and just said we're thinking about adopting again, and it was a lot quicker that time around because obviously she already knew us. She didn't need to ask us about our family and our schooling and things like that. We'd kept in touch with our first son's foster carers. We were matched with a little boy that they were actually looking after at the time, so we already knew the child that we were matched with, which was a good thing because he's got a diagnosis of fetal alcohol syndrome, which when I look back at our original paperwork, we'd said we wouldn't even consider a child with fetal alcohol syndrome. Because we knew him anyway, it was an easier decision to make, that it wasn't some scary thing that you read about on the internet. We knew this little boy. Then the third one was a bit of an unusual one in that our second son had a half brother, and at the time they were hoping that he'd be placed with a sister. But there were no adopters found willing to take the two of them. So eventually the sister, who was still a baby at the time, was placed separately, and it looked like the brother was going to stay in foster care until he was 18, and it was at that point we said, no, we don't want this to happen. Send him here as well, we'll have another one. So that was how we ended up with 3 boys within 3 years. Go for it. I think too often people wait for years and years and years and exhaust every possible other opportunity before considering adoption, when I feel it can save you quite a lot of heartache to adopt. Obviously, it's not for everybody, but if it's something that you're interested in, I'd definitely say to look into it now, not wait until you're at the very end of the road and this is the only option. I think adoption can be a positive choice rather than just the last possible way of becoming a parent.